The subject of rice, the brocha on rice, is a complicated subject, and it has a lot of details. I'll try to put it down in an easy way as much as possible to help you follow all the details in a way that you wouldn't have difficulties. Let's try. Rice is a little similar to Hamisha Minei Dogon, the 5 kinds of grain. When you have the Hamisha Minei Dogon, Chito, Seiro, and the other, so when you make out of it bread, it's a choshev thing, and Chachamim was metaken that you should say Hametzad Lachem min haaretz, and after you eat, you bench, the regular benching. If you make out of it cake, then it's not as choshev as bread, but it's choshev. So therefore they were metaken a special broche of beire mine mezenas, and after you eat, you say alamichya. Alamichya is similar to regular benching. What is the difference? The difference is that it says in Chumash that after you eat, V'ochalto, v'sevoto, u'virachto, es Hashem Elokecho, al ha'oretz ha'toivo. So therefore, there is 3 broches for the bread, and for Eretz Yisrael, and for Yerushalayim. Hazon u'sakel, al ha'oretz v'lamozin, u'v'nei Yerushalayim yirei kodesh. The same thing is also by mezenas. But by mezenas, they don't make out of it 3 separate broches. It is all in one broche. But you also say there, ala mire vala kalkolo, val eretz chen v'tiv v'rchovo, val Yerushalayim. So, at least there is a difference, but they are in the same category. All this is only by the 5 kinds of grain, Hamisha Minei Dogon. What is the din if you do bread or mezenas out of kidneys? Then you don't have this brocha. You say shehakel. It's food, but it's not choshev enough, so they don't have the special brocha. So you say shehakel, and after you eat, you eat beer in the foshes. There is no beer min mezenas, no mitzvah lachem min haaretz, and not benching, and not alamichyo. Just shehakel, beer in the foshes. What is the din by rice? Rice is similar to the 5 kinds of grain, but it's not one of them. It makes your zat, soveya, a little bit like bread, but it's not exactly.
Why didn't it make it into the 5 grains? It's like there's kidneys, and then there's dagan, and then there's rice.
Right, rice is something in between that Chachamim did not give it the chivas of the 5 minute dogon, and it's not like kidneys, it is similar. It is not only by brocha, it is by other dinim also, by matzahs also. Let's see what is the din of rice by brocha, and what is the din of rice by matzahs that we have to eat the first night. Matzah that is made out of Hamisha Minei Dogon.
Why did Chachamim not, what about rice made Chachamim not include?
Because it's not as soveya as lechem. it also gives a little bit of sphere, but not as much as bread. Let's see what the Chachamim was metaken about rice. They was metaken, if you make bread out of rice, before you eat it, you say boyer min mezenes. After you eat it, you say bir nefashis. So the first brocha is like mezenes. The brocha achrene is like kidneys. It's in between. The same thing is also by matzah. Matzah has to be out of 5 minute dogon, not of kidneys. If you mix 5 minute dogon, flour of wheat, together with flour of kidneys, you mix them, you make from them matzah, it's not good for the mitzvah. Teichel matzahs means only if it's dogon. Rice is also not like matzah. If you make matzah of rice, it's no good, because it has to be from 5 minute dogon. But if you mix it with flour of wheat, the whole thing becomes like wheat, because the rice is a little similar, and when you mix it, it does it. Let's see how the Alter Rebbe explains it. It's in this, on the second side, is the din of matzah. Im iriv kemach chitim, im kemach erez, na ve'oso mehem matzo, im yesh bo ta'am chitim, hareu ke'ilu hoiso kulo chitim. If you mix flour of rice with flour of wheat, and it has a taste of wheat, then you make out of it matzahs, it's kosher. Ukshe'echel kezayis mimeno yetze yedei chivosei. It is just like you ate from wheat. Af al pi sheroiv kezayis זה הוא אורז. לפי שטבע האורז להיגורר אחר החיטים. When it goes with flour of wheat, it becomes the taste like flour of wheat, and it's kosher. אבל אם עירב קמח חיטים עם קמח דויכון, which is kidneys, אף על פי שיש בטעם דוגון, אין יצא מדי חבוסה. Because it's just a little bit close to it. And the same thing is also by the brocha. Like he says in Seif Yud, not only by bread, also if you make a kasha out of rice, ho'oires rice, im bishlei ad shenitzbach, that it became like a kasha which is changed by the cooking. Mevorech bere min mezenes, avolachov bere min nefashos rabis. It gets one thing like the dogon, but not both of them, not completely. By Pesach it's only if it's mixing. By mezene, by brocha, it is only half. Like bere min mezenes, and after that you say bere nefashos. That is the original din. B'brocha and b'matzes. Actually, lemaise, both are not able to use. Why? Oires, Pesach, our minhag, the Rishonim made a takone, we shouldn't eat kidneys and not rice. Because you could make out of it a kasha, you could make out of it bread, and you could mix, so they said you shouldn't. Sfardim eat it, Ashkenazim don't. the Rishonim paskin that we do not. So you can't mix oires, flour of rice with flour of wheat, because we don't eat Pesach, flour of rice. The halacha is a halacha, but we can't do that.
So we're not allowed to eat either, only if it's a matzah.
You could eat not for the first night. You could eat Pesach. We don't eat rice the whole Pesach, because it could be becoming chometz, and then you use the other kind of kasha too, and they made a takana, we don't eat it on Pesach. So obviously you cannot mix it with the wheat in the first night, because we don't eat it the whole Pesach. The Sfardim could, they do it, they didn't accept this gzeira. So they could, but theoretically, practically, we cannot use that halacha. The same thing is by the brocha of berem in the mezenes. We cannot say a berem in the mezenes on bread which is made of flour of rice. Why? Because there is another one kind that is similar to the Chamisha Mini Dogan, which is called doichan. As you see here, it says melt. So what do I care what's about the doichan? Because there is a machlekes in Rishonim when the Rachomim said that Oirez has a din of berem in mezenes. There is a machlekes if they spoke about what we call rice, or they spoke about what we call melt, which is doichan. One of them is kidneys. Since it's kidneys, so we make out of it bread, you say shahakol. And one of them is that they were made a takone berem in the mezenes. We don't know which one it is. So each one that we take, either melt, either rice, we cannot say berem in the mezenes, because maybe it's kidneys, and we have to say shahakil. So what do we do if we eat rice? It's a machlekes if we have to say berem in the mezenes, or we have to say shahakil. So the halacha is, if we eat rice, we say shahakil. Why? It's a machlekes. Either shahakil, either berem in the mezenes. The reason is, the Chachamim was metaken several brachas. Shahakil means everything that we eat, including bread, including bezenes, including rice, whatever we eat. If we say shahakil on it, because I didn't know which bracha it is, yetze. If there is a suffix, what bracha you to say, we say shahakil, we are yetze. So since we don't know which bracha, which one is doichan, which is shahakil, and which one is rice, eires, that is mezenes, so we say on it shahakil. We cannot say mezenes. If the bracha is shahakil, the mezenes doesn't help. If the bracha is mezenes, shahakil could also help. So therefore, we say on rice shahakil. Even though, theoretically, if we would know which one is oires or which one is doichan, then on oires we would say berem in the mezenes, and on doichan we would say shahakil. But since we don't know, so on both of them we say shahakil. Obviously, there is no problem with brocha achreina, because in any case, oires, the brocha achreina is b'rei nefashos. This is one topic that we cannot say on Erez B'rei Minim Zeines, because we don't know which one is Erez, which one is Deichan, so therefore is a Sofek. If the brocha is Shehakil or Mezeines, so is he Shehakil. Then, that's if we eat bread or Mezeines out of the flour of the Erez. Or we break it in pieces, the rice, we grind it, and we make a kasha of it. It's also usually when we make kasha, even from grain, we say mezeines. We don't say ameitzi because it's not baked, it's only cooked, or whatever. But we say mezeines. So the same thing is also rice. But if you make a kasha of the rice, which is not grinded, just as it is, then comes a third option we should have to say on it, bere prihu adomo. And that makes it a little complicated. Why bere prihu adomo? Because let's say you eat the rice, you bake it as it is. You don't grind it, you don't do nothing. It's not bread, it's not kasha, it's regular eires. So we say adomo.
Kasha is like a maisa kedera?
No, maisa kedera is if it's cooked to become a kasha. But if you just bake it, let's start with the wheat, the mini dogon. You may meet sometimes in Shulchan Aruch that it says that Pesach, children don't eat the candies that is chometz. So what should we give them? We give them kloyes. What means kloyes? You take wheat, you just bake it a little bit as it is, and then when you eat it's like a candy, a little bit. It's a nash. It's a nash. That same thing it says in Hilchas Yontef. Yontef, give the children something that makes them happy. What should you give them? Kloyes. So it's wheat, it's baked, it's not cooked, so it's not masik deira. So you say adomo and bere nefashos, because it's not the chachomim have talking that if you make out of it bread or mezeines or a kasha that you mix it with some water and it becomes a kind of a meichel, then you say bere min mezeines or a meitzi by other kind of grain.
When do you make hamaitzi on a cooked grain?
Never.
Oh.
If it's cooked, it's always mezeines.
So might do lechem in ours. It has to be.
Hametzi is only when it's baked.
Okay, fine.
So, when is it called that it became a maisik deira or a kasha? And when is it still separate, each one, that is still like loyas? So there's a machlekes. If you break it in pieces, it became a kasha, that you say bere min mezeines. Even if you didn't grind it, you didn't break it in pieces, you just peeled it and then cooked it, that they became sticky one to the other, it's already called like a new entity, and it's becoming mezenas. By grain.
So the second opinion is that it doesn't have to be crushed, it only has to be stuck together?
It's the second opinion, if it's not crushed and not pasted, not glued, it is still ber minim mezenas. The first one says that ber minim mezenas is only if it was glued together or was grinded or broken to pieces. The second says anyways. So when we eat a kasher which is not of grain, but which is not pasted one to other and not grinded, then there is a machlekes if you say adomo or you say ber minim mezenas. That's by grain. Let's see it inside. In Sif Ches, first he says, that if it's a tafshil that is out of flour, mikemach, or the grain was broken into 2 or 3 pieces and cooked, that's called daisa, a kasha. Afilele nichlak, it wasn't breaking to a few pieces. Like shuhusok liposei, the peel went off by any kind of method. V'darke leochel kach bevushel, kegen arife shel tzeirim, it's also ber minim mezenas. Veyesh omrim ad sheismachu v'yizdapku agarinim ze leze mereva bishel. It was cooked so much that it became like one piece.
Like oatmeal?
Oatmeal is something which you cook and becomes one piece. I know by rice, when you cook it, it becomes like one piece the rice. But over there, it's if it became one piece, it's ber minim mezenas. If it didn't become one piece, you just cooked it and you eat the cooked water with the rice. But the rice is not, each one is separate. Not rice. Let's speak about
Like bread.
grain. Bread is already grinded.
Right. So
We're speaking about not grinded. When you make a kasha of rice, it's not grinded. Therefore, there is a question by grain and by rice, when they are not grinded and not pasted together, if it's called like kloyes, which is ber pri adomo and ber nefoshes, or it is, since it's cooked together, it's already called the tafshil, maisik dera, and you already say ber minim mezenas.
But I have a question. Does it matter if you use different types of rice? Like some, like let's say long grain rice is more like less stuck together, and short grain rice will be more stuck.
It doesn't matter. If it became one piece, there is no question of adomo. If it didn't become one piece, and they are separate, then there is a machlekes.
So what would be?
Right. So what does it matter which type of?
Doesn't, if it's
Why?
rice, so it doesn't matter. It matters only if it's pasted together by cooking or not.
No, but certain types of rice, like short grain rice, and when it cooks, like let's say sushi rice, it's very sticky. When it cooks, it all gets stick together.
That's, he doesn't say which one. He says it's independent if it's sticky or not. If it's sticky, everyone agrees that it's mezenas by grain. By rice, we'll discuss soon. But if it's not stick together, then there is a machlekes.
So the machlekes is only on the types of rice that doesn't stick. So the
Yes.
types of rice that does
Yes,
stick.
and the machlekes is not only by rice. Machlekes is also by grain.
Right.
If you make out something of grain, usually when you make for something for a kasha, you already grind it in some way. But if you don't grind it, you just take it as it is and you get it together and you cook it together, then it's machlekes. If it's adomo and or shakel, or mezenes. Now by rice, soon we'll see what we are doing actually in this case. By rice, we have, if it's not stick together, we have now 3 broches. It could be it's adomo, could be it's mezenes, and could be it's shakel because maybe it's doichan.
Why would it be shakel? Because if it's whole daikon, it would be.
Because maybe the takone of berem in the mezenes is on the other kind, because there is oires and doichan, and we don't know on each one of them the chachomim make the takone that you say berem in the mezenes. There's a machlekes. So each one of the doichan and rice that you eat, you don't know if it's kidneys or it's oires.
So let's say it was whole kidneys.
Kidneys and it's baked together, it's shakel.
No, so let's say it's whole though. It's not stuck together.
Not stuck together. If it's not stuck together, it may be adomo.
Yeah.
It could be it's considered as cooked anyways. So then it's either berem b'mezenes, either shakel, because if it's kidneys, it's shakel. A bread of kidneys is shakel.
Wait, so I'm saying if it's stuck together, it's either shakel.
Either mezenes. Yeah.
But if it's not stuck together, it's either mezenes or hadam.
Either mezenes or adomo, but maybe shakel.
Why?
Because maybe it's already considered as a kasha, and a kasha, if it's not
So you're saying,
oires, it's doichan, then it's shakel, because maybe it's kidneys.
so you're saying we don't necessarily know when it's considered nismai?
No, if it is nismar, it's certainly either mezenes, either shakel, because we don't know if it's kidneys or it's oires.
Right. So I'm saying if it's not nismai, right? It's
Yes,
not nismai.
yeah. Then there is a machlekes if it's considered as adomo
Yeah.
or mezenes. But if it's mezenes and if it's kidneys, mezenes of kidneys is shakel. Mezenes of rice is mezenes. Mezenes of bread of kidneys is becoming shakel. So we don't know. We have 2 kinds. We don't know on which one. Each one, on which one the Chachomim made the takon of mezenes. Could be it's considered like kidneys. Kidneys is shakel. So we have a triple question: if it's adomo, or mezenes, or shakel.
Got it. So I didn't know there was an opinion which said if you have kidneys, which is whole and cooked, it would be shahafel.
That's what I said in the beginning.
So, but I thought if it's whole, meaning because the alternative
No,
is
no, but by whole, we don't know. Let's say it's not whole. It's bread, made. It's grinded.
Yeah.
Then there's a machlekes of shakel or adomo. If it's not grinded, it could be adomo. But if it's considered as grinded, then there is a question if it's berem mezenes or shakel.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have 2 questions on rice. One is even it became bread. Question, you made flour out of it and then you made bread. A question if it's kidneys, so it's shakel or mezenes. The second, if it's not grinded, if it's adomo or shakel. So let's see now what is the maskona. The maskona is that you say on rice, shakel. Why shakel? We don't know if it's adomo or it's mezenes. So how shakel helps? It's not shakel. The reason for it is because if you have a question if it's adomo or mezenes, you cannot say as adomo, you cannot say mezenes. Because mezenes doesn't pater adomo. Adomo doesn't pater mezenes. It's 2 different things. So when you have a question if it's adomo or mezeines, you have no other choice. You have to say shehakil. Because shehakil helps b'di'evid an adomo and an mezeines. But adomo doesn't help for mezeines. Mezeines doesn't help for adomo.
Why doesn't adomo help for mezeines?
Because the reason is it changed and there's another brocha on it. It was never included in adomo. It's not adomo now because it changed completely. But shehakil, I don't care if it changed or not. Shehakil includes everything. So therefore, let's see what the maskona is in Sif Yud. Umi sofek roi levorcholov shehakil kshu sholem.
So like a bowl of rice.
Yes. It's not glued together. Because even though there is no question, it's not a shehakil. It's either adomo, either mezeines, but you have no other choice. So you say shehakil, because shehakil helps on both. In birech olov boire priho adomo yotzo. Why? Because maybe it's good. So you said already a brocha. So you can't say now anything else. But lachatchila you shouldn't say that, because maybe it doesn't help. So if you want to know what to do, make a rice shehakil. If you already made adomo, you thought the brocha is adomo, don't worry anymore, because it's okay.
What if you say mezeines? It's not okay?
I don't know.
Because let's say someone becomes chabad.
No, the brocha has nothing to do with Chabad. The brocha, there is a question of machlekes, what is called oirez and what is called doichan. So there is always a shaila. No, over there the shaila, if it's called, when it's not glued, if it's called already ma'aseh deira becoming mezeines or not. I don't know. He says only adomo helps b'di'evid. Maybe because after all it became from adomo. I don't know. But the theory of lachatchila say shehakil, and if you said adomo it helps, is just like as explained. There is no question it's not shehakil because it's not glued together. Question is if it's adomo or mezeines. When you have a sofek, if it's adomo or mezeines, you have to say shehakil.
But also the fact that it's not glued together means that maybe it's also not mezeines. Could that be?
Then it's adomo.
But also maybe not mezeines, no?
It's not mezeines if it's adomo. Yeah, but since mezeines comes from adomo, so, and maybe it is adomo, so if you said already, it says it could help. You shouldn't say anything more.
Or mezeines doesn't help.
I don't know. Because mezeines doesn't help on adomo at all. Because it's not adomo, it's not mezeines.
Right.
But mezeines has a little bit, it comes from mezeines. Adomo, I don't know.
Okay.
That is the two subject of rice. But the subject is more complicated by grain. That you made a kasha of it that it's not glued together. Why over there is more difficult? Over there is also shaila if it's adomo or it's mezeines. The reason is why over there is more complicated, because over there we have another sofek. The other sofek is on the brocha achreino. Here by rice, in any case the brocha achreino is bir nefoshes, so we have no issue with the brocha achreino. But by the grain that you made a kasha of it and it's not glued together, so we don't know which brocha achreina we should make. We don't know it's ber nefoshes. If it's adomo, it's ber nefoshes. If it's ber mezeines, then it's alamichya. So we don't know. Over there, for sure it doesn't help one or the other.
You're talking about wheat that's whole,
Yes.
cooked whole.
Yes.
Okay.
But not, what's it called? Clayas?
Klois is baked.
Baked. Oh, this is cooked.
Then there is no, she said cooked.
Okay, cooked.
Yes. What is the din if we eat something that we don't know if we have to say brocha achreine of the main gimel or ber nefashos? Each one doesn't help. This question is not only by rice or by grain. It's also by kind of fruit that we don't know if it's me'en gimel, if it's shivas aminim, or it's not from shivas aminim. So we don't know if we have to say ber nefashos. The first bracha is there always ber priot. Second bracha, we don't know if it's al eitz or it's ber nefashos. Al eitz doesn't help on ber nefashos, and the ber nefashos doesn't help on the eitz. So he says that if you want to do what you have to take another piece of cake, drink a little bit of water, that for sure you have to say Alamichya, for sure you have to say ber nefashos, and then say both. Let's see how he says it together.
What about a dama? We don't think it would be a dama?
Hadama still ber nefashos.
Dama doesn't become, yes.
Oh, sorry, I got you.
Let's see how he explains it. Sif Yud Ches. Birkas Alamichya eino peiteres birkas ber nefashos. Birkas ber nefashos eino peiteres me'en gimel. So what do we do? Kol davar shenistapik beberchos imu me'en gimel ber nefashos. Either like grain that wasn't glued together, v'reitze leichle shalibet irasudo, yechali midovar sheberchos ber nefashos chabes, v'dovar sheberchos me'en gimel me'isamin shemistapik be, because each one of them doesn't help the other. So by the grain that is not glued together, we have two sfekes. One suffix is what brocha rishena we should make. Ber preadamo or ber minamazenes. The second, brocha achreine. Do we have to say ber nefashos or we have to say me'en gimel? So what should we do? Therefore, by rice, he says, say shehakil, because we don't know, because it's not glued together. By grain, try to not to do it. Eat it only in the middle of the meal. Eat it only in a way that you wouldn't have a problem. Because even if you'll solve it and you'll say shehakil, you solved only the brocha rishena, but you didn't solve the brocha achreine. And brocha achreine, you cannot say anyone on both. So therefore, in Sif Ches, he doesn't say shehakil, say ber preadomo, or shehakil. He just says that we have a machlekes, and he doesn't say what to do, because you have a problem. Why is it that the shehakil helps on bread and bezenes? Ber nefashos doesn't help on mezenes. That's a general one. Ber nefashos rabbi everything. So why shouldn't it help? Just like the brocha achreine, it helps, it should help the brocha achreine too. Let me try to explain what the difference is. It says in Chumash, v'ochalto v'sevoto v'rachto, you have to bench after you eat bread. If you didn't eat bread, doesn't say in Chumash that you have to make a bracha achreine. Then the Chachomim came and said, let's say a bracha achreine on everything. So this bracha achreine that the Gemara was mitaken, it was never meant to include bread or mezenes? Because they came first. They in the Chumash it says that you should say brocha achene on benching. Then the Chachamim came in the Mishnah and Gemara and said that whatever we eat, let's say bar nefoshes. So they were taking this brocha. These bar nefoshes were never included the gimel, main gimel. So he can't help. What is the din by the brocha reshena? Brocha reshena, the Menatera doesn't say, you don't have to say brocha reshena. Brocha reshena is lachatchila takon of Chachamim. So they made the takon a shakel nibedore on everything. Then they said if it's growing, it's more choshev. Let's say have a special brocha for it, adomo. If it is growing on a tree, it has more shivas. Let's say a special brocha on it, bereproitz. If it became mizenes, it's more choshev, and let's say a special brocha on it, beremin mizenes. If it's more choshev, it became bread. Let's say a more choshev brocha, a meitzelach menoret. They all came later. Lachatchila, they were taking, you say a brocha before you eat b'shakel di b'dvora, everything. So the shakel included everything. But then they made a special brocha for each one. So the beresh shakel included them. So if you say shakel on everything, it helps.
Could you technically make very b'diavad shakel on bread?
If you have no choice, yes. Because if you don't know what brocha means, let's say you don't know if it's bread or if it's from the grain or it's kidneys. So you don't know if it's bread, or it's shakel. So or it's shakel. So you say shakel, and it will help even on bread. But you'll have a problem that you wouldn't know if you have to bench.
Right.
And then the bir nefoshes wouldn't help, and the benching wouldn't help.
So there's transferability between bracha rishayna, but not bracha harayna.
Correct.
Okay.
By bracha harayna, there is no one helps for the other. Like it says in Sif Dalet, Ve'al kulam, all kinds, in bir shakel niye b'dvorei, yotzo, afilu al pas v'yayin, because shakel means everything. לפיכך כל פרי שהוא סופק עם הפריאויציה האדומו, מבורך פרי אדומו. אם אין ידיע כלל, מהו מבורך שהכל נהיה בדבורים. But you didn't solve the benching. So therefore, when he speaks about grain, the machlekes, he doesn't come with a solution. The best thing is to eat it in the middle of the meal. Or you eat a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And you say the two brochas.
I have a question. What bracha do you make on bread that's wheat mixed with rice? The one that we said about.
We don't have that. If it's mostly rice, you say shahakel, and if it's mostly grain, you say there is no such a thing of since it's mixed, it becomes. It doesn't say in Birkas Hananin. It says by matzah.
So it doesn't transfer.
I don't know. It
So
doesn't
on
say.
the matzah, that's rice and wheat. What would you be able to wash for that matzah?
The question, if you would say ametzalach menorot, or you would say berem mezenes, I don't know. Even if there is kind of matzah that is, you say mezenes and it helps. Let's say it said you make it mezenes becomes also when it's like tort, very soft and thin, and it's kosher for matzah. So you could sometimes say berem in mezenes and eat matzah and your yetzer.
Really?
Yeah, but we don't do that.
Tortilla matzah.
We don't do that. Like the blintzes, it says about the blintzes. The blintzes is thin and soft. So if you eat only the blintze itself without the cheese that comes inside, so you say ber minim zelis.
Right.
Even it's only water and flour. So
You want to get away with that one. I'm just saying. But isn't like for grains, doesn't it become the ikr because grains are the ikr? So
yes, yes, could be.
so it would just be the same halacha as bread.
I don't know. I don't remember what it says. Could be it says, I don't remember. This is more or less the two sfekes about rice and how we solve it. I mentioned kidneys is, if it becomes bread, it's shahakel. And if it didn't become bread, it's adoma. But if it's in between, there is also machlekes. But that machlekes is not our machlekes. I'll try to explain that, and that will start with any kind of fruit that you grind it, and till you don't recognize what it is. You made out of the fruit, you made a jam. You cooked it and you grind it, and now it's a jam, and you don't even see what it is.
Or like a smoothie.
Yeah. So we have a machlekes there, and then we'll get to the kidneys. If you could recognize on it what it is, then for sure you didn't lose the brocha of eitz. If it's made for that, you didn't lose the brocha of eitz, even if you don't recognize. Let's say you take apples, you make applesauce, very thin applesauce for children, for babies, that you don't even recognize. You still say ho'etz, because it's made for that. If it's made for that, it still stays ho'etz.
Why is it made for that?
Yeah, what is
But that usually they do it. You do it. You make it for children, so you do it. You grind it.
So it's there.
But technically,
Rasa?
you also
still
make
know it's an apple.
smoothies. You also make smoothies
The juice
only out
also
of
juices
fruit.
anything.
If it's made, it's very difficult to decide what it's made because the companies are making applesauce. But theoretically, if you decide that you want to make some kind of to smear on bread or something, a kind of a jam, you don't recognize what it is, and it's not really made for that, you make it, but it's not a standard thing that people make, then there is a machlekes if the brocha stays or not.
Is it about derech achilas side?
No, it's certainly derech elose. That's no problem. Problem is if it stays, it is considered as an apple, or it's considered as juice. Juice
Right.
is something else, so it becomes shakel. The question is, if the jam became something else, which becomes shakel, was it completely changed, or it is still the priorities. So if you recognize it, it stays ho'etz. If it's made for that, it stays ho'etz. If you don't recognize and it doesn't stay, then there's a machlekes.
Is it things that can only be made out of fruit? So like applesauce can only be made out of an apple. You look at it, you know it's applesauce. Jam's only made out of berries, maybe some sugar. Versus like a smoothie has liquid in it. It's like it's a drink. It's different.
If it's drink, there is always shak.
It's always shahakal.
Yes.
So I'm like,
What's
jam's
like,
ha-
what makes
jam
it
is made out of a
ha'etz?
fruit that's usually made for jam, like a berry or apricot.
So let's say
Is
you,
that always ha'etz?
if it's made for that, yes. If you take another fruit and you make some kind of, you cook it and you make it to smear on bread or something like that, then there is a
What
machlekes.
about
Who
like
decides
almond
if
butter,
it's made
peanut
for
butter?
If I don't know, there is not a real, there is not a real. I'll tell you a example.
Oh, peanuts are dumb.
How much we don't know what is considered made for that. Is chocolate made for that?
I would say so.
What form?
You would say so.
Yeah.
And what bracha you say on chocolate?
Right.
Chocolate.
Melt, yeah, chocolate.
Why not to eat? It's growing. It is so much changed that you don't recognize, but it's still made for that. So it's not a clear thing what is called made for that, because sometimes it's already regular that we consider it as changed so much. But in general, there's a difference if it's completely changed. You don't recognize, it's not made for that. Then the broche stays or doesn't stay.
But
So we don't know.
What about
exactly if it's a-
spices? Like dried spices. Technically, is that hadama?
that's beautiful.
But you don't need it.
It's not.
You eat it just when you eat something to give a spice, to give a taste in something else. You don't. Hey, the best example is Rosh Hashanah. We eat apple in honey. We say ber prioitz. We don't say shahakel, even though the honey is shahakel, because the honey is there not because you want to eat honey. You want the apple to have a taste of honey. So whenever you give something to give a taste, spices, you don't say bracha. That's for fruit. Now let's.
Can I ask one more question? It's
Yes.
jam. Nuts that are ha'etz and they're made into like a nut butter, like almond butter. Would that be still ha'etz if you eat, because like a significant amount of it?
If it's made to eat,
we
and
don't know if it's made to eat, you said. We can't distinguish.
I don't know. Let's give you a example.
Peanut butter. Even.
Peanut butter.
Yeah.
So peanut butter, since it's made for that, it should stay hadoma.
Yeah.
But usually it's made to smear on bread, not to eat it as it is. So then you don't say don't
So
brocha.
it's the tougher.
So yeah, it's a tough
But
one.
what if you eat it by the spoon?
What?
Yeah,
If you eat with a spoon, it should stay very predictable because it's made for that.
I eat
But I don't know if it's made for eating with a spoon.
But so
I don't know. All these things, I just started the subject. It is not so clear. But I explain you the background. You should understand what is not clear there.
I was just asking that because the rule of that would make jam ha'etz is the same rule that would make almond butter ha'etz.
Right.
If it's like something that
Adomo.
you eat.
The almond butter, yes.
Almonds are hadama?
Yeah, no. Peanut butter.
Okay.
Yeah, almond butter is the same thing. I don't know if it's made. Usually, people, if they make it, it should be almond butter. Usually, almond you eat as it's almond as they are. So I don't know if it's considered made for that. If a company does it, it doesn't become yet the standard of doing that. The question if it's a standard. All this was an introduction that we shall now speak what is the din of kidneys. We know that kidneys, if you make bread out of it, since it completely changed, you said a shackle. That's what it says in Gemara. It changed completely, and you say shackle. But there is a problem. We just mentioned that if we have fruit and we completely grinded it, you don't even recognize, it's a machlekes. If it stays or eats, or it becomes shakel. By kidneys that is grained and made flour and made a cake of it, it says in Gemara that we say shehakel. So why should be there shehakel and not like other fruit according to the day that we say that other fruit it stays zoetz? Why is kidneys grinded and made the bread more becoming shehakel than other fruit that you grind and you don't even recognize? So therefore, it says that the reason why kidneys becomes shehakel is not because you don't recognize, because we are saying the other day says that even if it's not recognized, it still says oitz. And here you say shehakel. So there is a special reason that if the kidneys you changed, it becomes shehakel. Why? Because it's made for the reasons, but anyways, it's anyway shehakel. Since the reason is not because you don't recognize, but because it changed, so any kind of change would make it shehakel. If the reason is because it changed completely according to the day that says if it changed completely, it becomes shehakel, then the kidneys, if it changed completely, it becomes shehakel. If you just make a kasha of it, breaking 2 pieces of each one, it still stays adomo. But if the other fruit, even if it changed completely, it is still ro'it or adomo, then what is the reason for kidneys? Because kidneys are different. So therefore, even if you make a kasha of it, it is also becoming shehakel.
What if in the kasha you can still make out what it is in the individual pieces?
That's what we're speaking about. That it's only changed for each one you broke, you make 2 pieces of one.
So it's still shehakel.
According to this day, if it's according to the day that when it's completely different by fruit, it becomes shehakel, so then kidneys have the same din as fruit. That only if it's completely different, if it became flour, it becomes shehakel. But according to the day that by fruit, it never loses the broche, so then you have to say that kidneys is different. So then by kidneys, even if it's broken into 2, it also becomes shehakel.
Which opinion was that fruit never changes its bracha?
It's 2 days in Shulchan Aruch, and 2 days in the...
So even there's a day that even orange juice would be ha'etz?
No. I think he mentioned to me that you wanted on one occasion I should explain the juice. That's a separate thing. It's completely different if there is for certain shehakel. But we're speaking about grinded, and it's still not drinkable. It's edible. So then there is a machlekes. And according to this is also different by kidneys. That if we say by fruit that if it's completely different then becomes shehakel, then kidneys has the same din. But if we say that fruit is always staying unless it becomes juice, but otherwise it always becomes, so we have to say that kidneys is different. So then kidneys, even if it's broken into 2, it's also becoming shehakel.
Because we follow day number 1.
Therefore, if it's a kasha of kidneys that is broken into, so we say shehakel, because every time that we have a sofek, if it's shehakel or adomo, we say shehakel. But with the schwarze kasha, it's kidneys and it's cooked together, but it's not necessarily broken. So then for sure we say Adamo.
Oh, you say Adamo?
Yeah, because it's not broken. If each one still stands for itself, so it's just like kloyes, just like broiled or cooked wheat, that it didn't become. It's only if it broke in, you grinded it, or at least you knocked on it, it should become from each one, should become smaller, 2 pieces, then there's a machlekes, and then you say shakel. But if you have the schwarze kasha, which is still not broken, you see each one for itself, so then for sure you have to say Adam. That's more or less what I had in mind to discuss. If you have any more questions, otherwise, that's more or less.
Yeah, I have a question. So there's a minhag that some people have to say like 3 brachas on, like if they have rice.
Yes, but it doesn't say in Shulchan Aruch, doesn't say in Piskei Siddur, and they do it, and some people say that's the best. It says in Shulchan Aruch about the brocha achreina, if you don't know which brocha achreina, you have no choice, you have to eat a little bit from this and a little bit from that. About rice, it doesn't say that. It says you could eat it in the middle of the meal, or you say shakel. And those people that do say 3 brochas, not always they do the right thing. Why? Because you drink a little bit, something that you're not thirsty. You don't have to say a brocha on that. A brocha on shakel is only when you're thirsty and you want to eat something. But if you eat it just because you want to be able to say the brocha, it doesn't say that in Shulchan Aruch, and not necessarily. So we never did it. I know I don't recommend it. Some people do so.
You say it's better to say shakel.
That's what it says. We could see in Sif Yud Aleph, in Sif Yud, misofek roi lavorach olav shehakel tshu shalom in bir pradom yotza. But it doesn't say you should eat it. And in Yud Aleph he says, if you don't eat it in middle of a meal, say shakel. It doesn't say eat 3 kinds. The 3 kinds, to understand the 3 kinds, you had to understand everything that I discussed. Because after what discussed, we said there's 2 questions, and one question is if it's Adomo or Mezenes, and one question if it's Mezenes or Shakel. So it becomes 3 options. Therefore, when they do it, they do all 3. But there is a question if it's good. But to understand why 3, why rice should be 3, so I explained what is the options and what are the questions, what is the machlekes, and that's why it's 3. But practically it doesn't say to say 3, it says either eat it in the middle of the meal, either say shakel.
How do you know if you're a Yerushalayim that has to eat it in a meal?
Each one should say, decide for himself.
Right.
If he wants to be Mehader, he's Mehader. That's what it's called Eshemayim. If you feel that you want to be Mehader, you're Mehader.
Right.
If you don't feel that you have to be Mehader, you don't.
Okay.
It's not something that is a rule.
I still have a question from the beginning. The
Yes.
one about the matzah.
Yes.
So we don't eat matzah made with rice on Pesach because we don't have kidneys. But we do eat matzah on Pesach, which is made out of something that could be chametz.
Correct.
So why can't we say that we eat rice if it's in matzah?
Correct.
But we don't eat
Correct.
rice?
It's a good question. But they say that by rice you will not be careful because it doesn't matter. And by kidneys you're not careful. And especially if you make a kasha, so you make it with milk or with something. So it is touching water. So if you feel you do it, you may use kinds of grains also in the kasha. So therefore they were metaken. And that's the Risheni was metaken time of the Rambam, of the Rashi, like 700-800 years ago. They were metaken, and they were metaken for the Ashkenazim do it. The Sfarim didn't accept it. There is different minhagim. So they eat kidneys with them.
Is there like I guess a set rule for when the Alter Rebbe feels that the safek is so severe that you should wash versus that? Meaning, when we just had one safek around the rice, he didn't say you should wash. He just even Yerushalayim, he just said shahakol. And then the second stage, he said you should wash. So is it just because there's two?
Yerushalayim, always it says at Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim should eat it only in middle of the meal.
But like in halacha yud, so you're saying like Yerushalayim is on both of them? Meaning,
It doesn't mention in Yud that you should eat it in the middle of the meal. Why in Yud it doesn't say you should eat it in the middle of the meal, even though there is a question if mezenas or adomo. And it says you should say shahakil. And in Yud Aleph, he says Yerushalayim should eat it only in the middle. I don't know why there isn't. But the whole thing of eating the meal, whenever it mentions, it is only for Yerushalayim. The same thing is also about regular cake. That we eat regular cake, that is the bread, the bread cake, what is it called? That you make it with juice. Mezenes bread. So it says that Yerushalayim should eat it only in the meal. Because there is a machlekes, if that is considered as bread or it's considered as bezenes. So since there's a machlekes, he has a whole explanation of why mezenes should be enough, and then alamichya should be enough. A whole explanation. But still he says, Yerushalayim should eat it only in a meal.
Can you wash a mezenes bread?
If it's a meal has two rules. You have to eat, when you eat the different if you eat a snake or you eat a meal. When you eat a meal, it's till you fill completely. And a snake is only you should be able to. So if you eat it as a snack, that you don't eat so much, you can't wash. But if you eat it as a whole meal, and you eat the shear of more than 4 eggs size, like a full mezenes bread, a full roll, then if you eat like a full meal, you could eat. You should eat mezenes, eat a meitzi. But there's a lot of details into it, and just saying very general. If we should have to go to that, and it's much more to explain.
Can you halachically define a kasha? Like in few words, like Maisa Kedera is ground up one of the 5 grains cooked in a pot, cooked.
Yes.
So what would kasha be?
Kasha has the same thing, because it's cooked. It's called Maisa Kedera, but the difference between regular Maisa Kedera and kasha is that kasha is usually mixed with some kind of liquid, and that's why it becomes kasha. It's not a thing for itself, but actually the same thing. Everything that is cooked, even if you cook a bread, let's say that you have the knedlach, last day of Pesach we eat knedlach. So we take matzah, we grind it, we make out of it a knedlach, and we cook it, and we say berem. Why not a meitzi? It should be a meitzi because there's only water and flour. There's nothing else because it's not cooked. It's cooked, but in order to become bread, it has to be baked.
And also, one last question is just about iris. Assuming that we know that iris is rice and that machlekes about iris and daichen aside, what about iris made I'm still having a hard time understanding what about iris made the Rishonim not make it one of the why isn't it shishas minei dagim? Why is it chametz daichen? Putting that thing aside,
because they decided it is not as making your soveya as bread.
But oats function the same way. A bowl of oats versus oat flour, it's not as
So when they was metaking that 1,500 years ago, they didn't make the takone. We can't make a takone of a brocha. The Gemara 1,500 years ago made a takone that since rice is not so much, there is countries that they eat only rice. But in our places, they didn't make so much rice to eat. They ate rice, but the main meal was the 5 grains. So they decided that the rice is not similar to the 5 grains. It's not becoming 6. It is just a little bit similar in a few halachas, because it's not regular food for like the grain.
So besides for the fact that it wasn't so common, there's nothing else that really makes rice an outlier from the Chamishas Minei Dagan?
Yes, because they didn't
deal with it, so it just wasn't one of them?
They dealt, and they said it's halfway. They said it's mezenas and berenafoshes. That's what they said then. So that stays with us. Even though you'll go to China and your full meals is going to be rice, it wouldn't change because the takana was then. And the takana was then because it's not so much. Let's say another thing. Bachometz. Rice is not becoming chometz. So different. All 5 grains, if you make it with water, you leave it to stay, it becomes bigger and it's chometz. Rice just gets spoiled, but they're not becoming chometz. That's what the halacha is. There is a difference in the nature and the character of the rice.
Oh, does it not have gluten?
I don't know the details.
Well, because I think oats have gluten. Right, but barley and rye are also have gluten content.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
That's it. That's the reason.
But oats doesn't. That's what's confusing.
No,
Oats
oats do.
are
Oats do.
Oats are gluten-free.
No, you can get gluten-free options, but usually oats do have gluten.
Most of them.
Like it has to specify this is gluten-free for celiac
so-
people, and usually sometimes it's not. So that's what it is.
Oh, okay.
Could be. I don't know. Because I can bet you that the Gemara doesn't speak about gluten.
Well, maybe gluten is what is severe.
Well, that's what it does make it.
I don't know.
I mean, if
Gluten
that's what the Chamishas Minei Dagan is, then Dagan is gluten.
could be.
No, that's what characteristic.
What makes a grain if it has gluten in it?
But
Because
maybe
rice
that's
is
not
a grain,
what
but it doesn't have gluten.
No, because that has to be a factor, but not the distinguishing factor of what is Dagan.
Yeah, you don't know why I decided that.
It could be, yeah, they're all Dagan. It could be all they're all gray, but it's not necessarily because they're all. That is what Dagan.